We are recording.
Okay. All right. Well, let's call the meeting to order. It's 10:03. First up on the agenda, we've got roll call and introductions.
So I will start with the voting members. For CCI, we need Barb Kirkmeyer, Mike Wallace, or Marie Madrigal. Nothing heard. Megan Dollar for CML. Nothing heard. I know Cheryl Garcia is on. Whoops. Did I click the, yeah, I clicked the right one. The next item is a vacant position that we will be discussing in just a little bit. After that is for BESP Tim Kunkelman.
I am present.
Thank you, Tim. For other BESP position, Mary Jane Rasher.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. For ILEC position number 1, Wes Horn.
Here.
ILEC position number 2, Darla Joseph. Not hearing anything. For wireless position, Jared Hilsendegger. Nothing heard. Other wireless position, Monica Aiken. Well, this isn't boding well. CLEC VoIP, Ray Paddock or Lindsay Carr.
Yep, this is Ray.
Hi, Ray. For other CLEC VoIP position, Jay Slater, Aaron Harris, or Erica Stevens.
Jay Slater's on.
Thank you, Jay. 911 positions, Daniel Calderon or Susan Myers.
And Monica Aiken's present, and so is Suzanne Myers.
Gotcha. And Danette Martin.
Here.
Thank you, Danette. Jeremy Duncan or Jennifer Kirkland.
Jeremy Duncan is here on chat.
Gotcha. Thank you for watching that. Kimberly Culp, Val Turner, or Tracy Oldmeyer.
This is Kimberly. I'm on.
Thank you, Kimberly. Jackie Reynolds, and I know I saw Amy Book.
This is Jackie. I'm on too.
Thank you, Jackie. Beth Dobransky. Nothing heard. Bruce Romero, Paul Smith, Denny Shin. Deanie Shin.
Bruce is here.
Thank you, Bruce. Felicia Librand, Paula Knoll.
Felicia's here.
Thank you, Felicia.
And Beth Dobransky's here as well.
Beth is here. Let's see, where is that? Here we are. Good deal. Jeff Irvin, I know I heard. Connie Johnson. Nothing heard. Deanie Shin or Shannon Brand.
Shannon Brent's here.
Thank you, Shannon. Athena Butler or Shelley Lesnansky. Nothing heard. Vicki Pickett's here. Scott Newman or Tina Bonetta.
Tina's here. Good morning.
Thank you, Tina.
And Daryl Connie's here.
Oh, thank you, Connie. There we go. Sean Shearer, Brandy Seaton.
Sean Shearer's here.
Thank you, Sean. Mandy Stolzheimer or Matt Gage.
Mandy's here.
Thank you, Mandy. Pretty sure I saw Matt as well. Carl Stevens, I know I saw on, as well as Monica Million. Patty West, Ted McEldowney, or Christine Mason.
Patty's on.
Thank you, Patty. We have 80% in attendance, so we definitely have a quorum.
Great.
And for everyone else, I'm asking that they go to the meeting page of the task force website and fill in the sign-in form. And Vicki, it's up to you if you want to try to do a roll call. I can read off the people that have signed in by web, and then we could ask for the people on the phone if you wish.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to know who's on the phone.
Okay. So those I see on the call are, and some of these are going to be repeats from the roll call we just did for voting members, but Amy Book, Beth Dobransky, Bill Levis, Bruce Romero, Cameron Decker, Carl Simpson, Carl Stevens, Connie Johnson, Danette Martin, Daniel Calderon, I hope there's no translator trying to keep up with me right now, and if so, I apologize. Daryl Pratt, Bill Duggan, I think is it Duggan or Duggins? Director from Freecom. Monica Million, Glenn Klach, Holly Bice, Jackie Louise, Jackie Reynolds, Jay Slater, Jeff Tucker, Jeffrey Irvin, Jeremy Duncan, Jody Chin, Joseph Benkert. I feel like the guy who reads out the school cancellations. Julia Beams, Ken Winward, Kimberly Culp, Lara Duran, Lincoln County Emergency, which I believe is Ken Stroud, Luke Adams, Mandy Stolsteimer, Matt Gage, Matthew Ruggles, Mike Cook, Monica Aiken, Patty West, Ray Paddock, Rob Greer, Cheryl Garcia, Shannon Brand, Sean Shear, Shauna Clementi, Stacy Gross, Suzanne Myers, Tim Goodwin, Tim Kunkelman, Tina Bonetta, Tracy Murdoch, Tracy Oldmeyer, Troy, I don't know Troy's last name, Valicia Searle, Vicky Pickett, and Wes Horn. Anybody whose name I have not read, if you're just on the phone, I don't see your name. So if there's anybody whose name I have not read, could you please speak up now? And some of those phone numbers are probably duplicates if people are on both the web and the phone.
Probably. Daryl, thank you so much for doing that. That was a lengthy list, but
it was a lengthy list.
Okay, so next up on the agenda, we've got the election for the at-large voting member. Looks like we have one nomination for Matthew Ruggles.
Correct. So at the last meeting, we approved an amendment to the charter for the task force, which adds an at-large voting member position. The charter also states that we will give preference to individuals who are representative of the disability community. I have received one nomination for Matthew Ruggles, who is on the call today. So I believe we need to open it up for not any additional nominations from the floor. And if there are additional nominations, we may need to hold a vote. Otherwise, the task force could vote to approve Matthew for that position.
Any other nominations?
And maybe as a suggestion, Matthew, if you're able to, would you be willing to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background? I don't know if Matthew has a interpreter with him today or not to be able to communicate with us directly. So maybe we just ask for any additional nominations and then close.
Yeah. Okay. Again, anybody that has any additional nominations for this position?
Do you need a motion to call for the vote?
Yep, that'd be great, Jeff.
I'll move. So moved.
Okay. Can I get a second? Got a second from Cheryl. Any more discussion? Okay. Hearing none. I would say anyone opposed to Matthew Ruggles' nomination, please say nay. Okay, hearing none. Our new at-large voting member is going to be Matthew Ruggles. Thank you, Matthew, for stepping up. Appreciate it.
I will let him know.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda, we've got the approval of the minutes from May 2020. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review those. Did anybody have any questions, comments, corrections, updates, anything like that?
This is Carl. I'll motion to approve.
Thanks, Carl. Got a motion to approve. Can I get a second?
This is Connie, I'll second.
Connie, thank you for a second. Any opposed to approving the minutes from the last meeting, please say nay. Okay. The minutes are approved. All right, so next up we've got the reports. First up is Daryl with the PUC staff update.
Pull up the standing report document. Okay, so 911 grant update. As of the writing of this report, we received a request for final payment from 2 911 authorities. That's Weld County and Boulder. Still working internally to get those processed at the time. I believe both of those have been processed and those agencies should have received their final payment. Just as a reminder, so it starts off with a 40% payment that's coming from a PUC fund, and that is to make sure that you have the funds to pay the matching portion. And then after you pay the full bill, then you can apply for reimbursement of the 60%, which is what I'm talking about here with Boulder and Weld having received those funds at this point. And we're moving forward. So we're moving forward with that, and that seems to be working well. PUC proceedings, the only active PUC proceeding we have right now is the 911 reliability proceeding. Those workshops are ongoing. We were going to have a meeting yesterday, but we decided to hold off for a couple of weeks because at the time I hadn't heard any news about the 911 funding bill, which is very relevant to the discussion within the 911 reliability proceeding workshops. So we will be holding that meeting on the 22nd at 2 p.m. Those meetings are open. You do have to sign an NDA, but anyone can join. So if you would like to get on the list for those, let me know, and I will get you added to that as soon as you get an NDA signed, and I can send you a copy of that. FCC proceedings. In the last report, the FCC, I noticed that the FCC had issued a request for comment on a proposal to change some required fields in the NORS reports and the 911 reliability reports. The commission did on Wednesday of this week approve some comments to be filed in that proceeding. The commission is supportive of both of those changes. Since this came out, I'm also aware of a later this month, the FCC will be issuing a final order on, or it's an additional order, I can't remember exactly how they worded it, on 911 location accuracy, including Z-axis. So as soon as I see more about that, I'll get that out to the group. I'm sure there are other people in this esteemed body that have been following that maybe a little closer than I have. I know Mary Jane is always really on top of the FCC dockets as well, but I don't see her on the call. Does anybody else have any information about the FCC proceeding that they're considering later this month?
Yep, Daryl, this is Mary Jane. It's on the July 16th open meeting agenda. So if you just go to the FCC page, you can pull up the meeting. There's a draft of what the it's a report and order on, I can't remember the sequence either, I think on the 5th FMPRM where it was looking at, it's all about the Z-axis metric. So they're going to stick with the schedule that they put out late last year. There's an additional, I think it's 2025 to move to having all wireless carriers providing the Z-axis metric, and there's also a date in there for dispatchable location. So it's a follow-up from the FMPRM they put out last November, I think. But you can see the draft order there.
Right. And I'll admit that has been a very confusing proceeding for me because of the inclusion of they have to meet a certain percentage of calls meeting the guideline within the top 25 commercial market areas or the top 50 commercial market areas by different dates. And just for my own understanding it of it. I'm going to have to sit down and break it out and write up a summary of it. So when I do that, I'll send it out to the group as well.
You know what, Daryl, when you pull up that draft order on the FCC's webpage before it goes to the 16th, they have a kind of brief little summary right there, a fact sheet. When they put out the actual report and order, they don't include that fact sheet. So grab that now. Because they did also, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but they also, you know, in the FMPRM, we're looking at whether or not they got comment on, rather than having 80% of the population in those CMAs, could they go for buildings that were three stories or greater, you know, which would be the main target area where you'd be trying to have a Z-axis metric anyway. So look at that summary page there.
Thank you. That's a good tip. Federal legislation. The only one that's new is HR 2, which is in the Invest in America Act. At the time that I wrote this summary, it had just been introduced to the floor. It has now passed the House. I've been told that it has a very uphill battle in the Senate, which is not surprising. But this is a massive infrastructure bill. It's over 3,000 pages long. But pages 1399 through 1417 are specific to 911. In fact, they include essentially incorporates a previous bill that creates a $12 billion grant program for deployment of next generation 911. It does have some very stringent eligibility requirements that make me nervous. I'm not entirely sure, reading those eligibility requirements, that Colorado will be eligible due to the requirements for central planning of next generation 911 and the fact that Colorado is a very local control state. But it's not entirely out of possibility that they could be interpreted in a way that would include us. I think a lot of that will come down to the rulemaking that NTIA will have to do to implement the grant program. But my guess is that the whole bill will go through a lot of changes in the Senate before it's approved, if it's approved at all. So we'll be watching that to see what happens to it, to see if the 911 section is amended. I do have a copy of just the 911 section, and in the standard report, this link will take you to that, just to the 911 section of the full HR 2 bill. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about HR 2? There are a number of other federal pieces of legislation that we've been tracking for a long time, but there's been no movement on any of them. But if you want to see the full list, I do keep that page updated on the Resource Center page, and I know Monica does as well. So I would encourage you to take a look at that legislation page for all of the other bills. And then the last thing I wanted to report was that the State of 911 report the work on the State of 911 report has begun. Those go by fiscal year, so this will be the report covering the 2019 to 2020 fiscal year, which ended on June 30th. The written version of the report is due September 15th. Right now I've gotten most of it done, except there are sections of it that I can't really write until I know for a fact that the 911 funding bill is getting signed, because that makes a big difference in what I put in that report. So as soon as I have a first draft of that finished, which will hopefully be by mid to maybe the third week of this month, I'm going to get a copy out to the reports committee. I've decided to use the reports committee as sort of the editorial committee for the report this year. And then after they've had some time to look at it and give me feedback, I will be sending a copy out to the full task force, as well as to a number of other public safety associations as required in the statute, such as the Colorado Sheriff's Association, police chiefs, fire chiefs, etc. There's a big list of associations that we've shared this with in the past. And then after we get their feedback, it'll go to the commissioners for their approval prior to the deadline of September 15th. So be watching for that information. We'll get that out as soon as it's available, so that everybody has a chance to provide their input on that report. And that's all I have for the PUC staff update, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions for Daryl? Thanks, Daryl. Up next, we got the ESP report. CenturyLink, do you have anything for us?
Good morning.
Morning.
I don't have anything of a real substance. I do want to just thank everybody for participating in the EZUNet user group process. I feel like that has been working pretty well over the last couple of months. I think we've uncovered some issues that we've been able to work through and at least in most instances not have repeat for someone else. So I think that the idea of that has been working well, and I just wanted to thank everybody for being part of that.
Great. Okay. Intrado, you have anything for us, Mary Jane?
No, I don't have anything today. Thanks, Vicki.
Okay, thank you. Agenda committee, Daryl.
This will just be my usual update that there is a list. There's a link in the standing reports document to the agenda committee page, and there's a list of potential speakers that we have on that page that have been suggested to me. If anybody has any other suggestions for speakers or topics, let me know.
Great. Bylaws committee, Kimberly.
No, our work concluded with that last change and we haven't had to meet again. So we're good for now.
Great. Legislative committee, Athena or Jackie?
Good morning, this is Jackie.
Morning.
Fireworks, yays, hoops, hurrahs. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and work on the legislative committee. There was a lot of hard work over 2 years, a lot of collaboration put into this effort, and the governor will sign it tomorrow in a virtual meeting. Daryl sent out that link yesterday. If you don't have that link, please let us know and we'll get it out to you because we can all join and watch. They were unable to do an in-person signing, but just that the governor signing the bill makes me ecstatic. Thanks.
It's fantastic news. A lot of hard work done by these guys, and it's an incredible accomplishment. So congratulations to everybody.
And I'd like to add, this is Daryl. I don't believe she's on the call, but Athena has announced her retirement. She's actually, tomorrow is actually her last day, I believe. And the whole 911 community, in my opinion, owes her a debt of thanks. Jackie and Athena both did amazing amounts of work on this. Athena did it in addition to running the largest 911 call center in the state. So, you know, thank you, Athena, when you hear this recording later, if you hear it, and congratulations on your retirement.
Hear, hear.
Vicki, this is Monica. I just wanted to let everybody know on the Resource Center's Facebook page, if you needed to find the link for the webcast tomorrow for the virtual signing, you can find it there also.
Terrific. Thanks, Monica. Okay, next up we've got the Equal Access Committee, Cheryl.
What? She said, hold on just a second. She's getting her notes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. You want me to read that? Okay. She has something prepared. I will read this. Cheryl is saying, we had our first subcommittee meeting June 23rd. Our task that day was a discussion on content of what we want to see on the new page for our 911 Task Force Equal Access in Education. We determined that we should add videos on various topics such as texting to 911 with an interpreter. And thank you, Matthew, for your suggestion. I recommended to include voice. That will make the videos universal accessible. They would be similar to North Carolina's. Here's the list of ASL videos on text to 911 with voiceover and captioning. She has 3 rather long links. Did you want to just send those? She will send those.
Those are in the standing report.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, we are wanting to do similar videos with a Colorado brand. North Carolina said we can use their videos as they are, but can't edit, as they have a copyright to those. We are looking for sponsors to partner with to help subsidize this endeavor. Please send any suggestions to me. I received a request from the governor's office. I'm not a request, response. I received a response from the governor's office. May have some funding from them. Sadie informed she has requested 16 videos at a cost of $12,000. I have joined NENA, Equal Access Committee. We meet the first Wednesday of the month. I reported on how I handle calling 911 as a person with a speech disability. Our next Equal Access Subcommittee meeting is July 28th from 9 until 10:30. Please email me if you have something for this agenda. And that is the extent. Do you want to add anything verbally, Cheryl? We have started. Started what? Paying? Oh, one moment. I didn't get that word, so she's going to type it. Oh, planning. We have started planning for next year. On the COEM conference. It says date. Okay, one moment. One moment, we had a kitten who decided to type. So Cheryl's trying to erase some of that. She's saying, she's gone back. Conference dates next February 23rd through 25th. Same place, up in Loveland. And more information to come. Is that everything? That's all. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Cheryl.
And, can I add a little bit?
Go right ahead.
Yeah. So everybody hopefully remembers the draft public education website that I brought to the task force last couple of meetings. So one of the things that Cheryl was talking about here is that I brought that draft website to the Equal Access Committee specifically to help me fill out the 911 accessibility section of that website. And I've gotten a lot of great information from them. And I think with their help, that website is almost ready to go, not meaning that it will never make any additions or changes to it ever again, but it will have enough information on it that it's worth making it public, at the starting point. So I want to thank the Equal Access Committee for helping me get the website to that point, and I'll let everybody know when I get approval to publish that website.
Who has to approve that?
I know that I have to go through an approval process internally in DORA, so I'm not sure what that process is yet, but I'll find out.
I'll approve it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Anything else, Cheryl?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. Up next, we've got the outage committee. Daryl.
So we only have one outstanding special investigation going on right now. I'm about ready to put that one to bed. I'm just getting a little bit of more information from CenturyLink, but I think it's almost done. Let me pull up the dashboard so I can show you where we're at on outages more generally. Eventually. Here it comes. Almost there. Maybe. I'm looking forward to this new computer. Okay, so as always, there is a chart at the top of the page that shows the 10 most recent outages that have been reported to us. The charts on the page only list the ones that fall into the category of basic emergency service outages, and there's a description here of what a basic emergency service outage is. Outages for year to date, we've if you look at probably the better way to look at it is this chart here on the right that shows outages as of today's date in each year. We've only had 3 outages so far this year. These are basic emergency service outages, whereas by the same date last year we were at 8. So we're doing a lot better this year in terms of basic emergency service outages, and that's very good to see. This one breaks it down by month. We've had 1 in the month of January, 1 in April, 1 in May. Average duration is up over last year, but still not at our peak in 2016. Average customer count is very low this year, which is good. So even though we haven't had as many outages, even the outages we've had have been in smaller areas, lower population areas. And then because of that, the average 911 outage impact in customer minutes is also down significantly this year, as well as total user minutes so far this year. All of the basic emergency service outages we've had so far this year are alley outages. It will be interesting to see for me how many of those go away or what effect there is on number of alley outages we have after we migrate all of the PSAPs to the ESI net. Since they will be, my understanding is that the alley information will be delivered over the same circuits as voice calls at that point. And we have, because we've only had 3 outages so far this year, the causes is very, we've got 1 of each. We've got system failure, we've got 1 that's accidental cable cut, and 1 that hasn't been identified as to what the actual cause of the outage was. Other than that, I don't think I have anything to add unless anybody has any questions for me.
Daryl, this is Cheryl.
Yes, Cheryl.
Tomorrow, or no, not tomorrow. Oh, T-Mobile has or had an what? T-Mobile had an outage.
Mm-hmm.
And what about it, Cheryl?
It was big.
Oh yeah.
It was a huge outage.
Oh yeah. That's all my comment. I'm just going to mention that.
Okay. Yes, and T-Mobile did have a large outage, as everybody, I believe everybody on the call is aware. I do believe the FCC is planning on investigating that. It's outside of the scope of what the PUC regulates, but not outside of the scope of what the FCC regulates. And I'm sure that they will be reaching out to the states for information, as they have in previous, like the big AT&T outage that happened in 2017, I think it was. They reach out to the states to gather information. So we'll be assisting the FCC with that when they reach out for that information.
Daryl, they have opened a case on that, and they are asking for 911 stuff, but I haven't seen anything come, just what they posted online.
Okay, I'll look into that, Carl, and see if there's some place that PSAPs can go and report what they experienced. In the past, they've reached out on a state level and had us gather the information, but if they want the information directly, I'll make sure that you guys have the the mechanism for giving them that?
The FCC issued a public notice asking for information on that from PSAPs and other entities. The date for response was actually yesterday, I believe, but it will be months before they finish the report, so there's plenty of time. I'll forward you a copy of the public notice.
That's helpful. It's too bad they didn't give us more time. That's a very short turnaround.
And Daryl, anecdotally, is there any feel for what the impact was here locally?
So when I did a very informal, just sending out an email by the statewide listserv, and I did get quite a few responses back. People stating that they were impacted to some degree, but I think it varied widely. There was also a large number of people who said they received the notification from T-Mobile but didn't notice any impact. So I think it's going to vary greatly from PSAP to PSAP.
Daryl?
Yes.
Cheryl is typing. It was a huge impact on my daughter. She couldn't call you. She couldn't call me, so I had daughter withdrawal.
There may. I don't know if that public notice that they sent out is just for PSAPs to provide comment. There might be place for individual consumers to provide input as well.
I think it was broader, but I'll get a copy to you.
Thank you.
Other customers were providing input when I looked last week.
Okay.
And I forwarded that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can tell you in Jefferson County that we had significant issues here, to the point that's why we did the WIA launch, to let all of our citizens know that they may have issues with connectivity. We were getting bombarded with calls that weren't going through, and it was a crazy time for sure.
Incidentally, that was a good example of the inherent issues with WIA, because I got inquiries from one of my commissioners who doesn't even live in Jefferson County, who received the WIA alert from Jefferson County.
Right.
The specificity on those WIA alerts, because it goes out by cell tower area, is just not that precise.
Well, and anecdotally, we actually had to do another one not too long ago for a wildland fire, and we learned that it really depends on the cell tower that it's hitting. So if it's hitting a cell tower that is on, has the more current equipment and versions of their software, and there's all kinds of things that need to be updated at a cell tower level that can really greatly impact how it distributes the calls. So for example, I forget what the phase is, but there was a phase to where if you had that phase, then it would pick the right phones and hit the right area. You also have a setting in your own phone that you have to have correctly. So there's a lot of issues for that, for sure. And in fact, the one that we did for the T-Mobile outage was considerably better hitting the target than it was the first one that we did. That one was terrible because it was hitting a mountainous area with a very outdated cell tower. So it can make a big difference depending on where the WIA is launched. So to Kimberly's question, so it actually did go through. I think it uses a different network. But that was why we decided to use the WIA option, because if we used Code Red, it would be a regular phone call / text, which is using the same network. So that's why we decided to use the WIA option, and it did seem to be pretty effective. So.
And that's a good use case for text to 911, that if there's a outage in the cellular network, sometimes it'll affect voice, but not necessarily text.
You see Carl's chat message there.
Yep. Carl says, my texts on T-Mobile were very slow, like 30+ minutes. But you didn't experience that in Jefferson County, Vicki?
I can't speak to that because I don't know if we had any customers that were actually in the center that could say one way or another. But I will tell you that the WIAs did go through. So.
And yes, I think I saw some of the outage notifications saying it was just an alley outage, but I also know there were people saying that their calls aren't getting through either. And a report I read later said that it was actually an error on the network that caused traffic congestion, which would affect voice calls, not just alleys. So I'm sure the FCC will be looking into that part of it as well.
Yeah, it was definitely affecting more than just alley, at
Yep.
least in our area. So, okay. Up next, we've got prepaid and collections committee. Jackie, do you have any update?
I do not, but I will be sending out a doodle poll to see when we could start meeting, probably closer to the end of the year, because after the bill goes into effect, there should be some changes to prepaid that hopefully we're going to see. So keep an eye on your prepaid at the first quarter of next year, but I'll send out a poll and we'll meet and talk about any issues or what we see happening in that area.
Great. Any
Thank
questions for Jackie? Okay. Thanks, Jackie. Up next, we got the reports committee. Daryl.
So following our practice of sending a report from the task force to the commission at every other task force meeting, that's every 4 months, it is time for us to send another report to the commission. I drafted a updated report and sent it out to the reports committee. I didn't receive a whole lot of feedback on it, but I did incorporate the feedback I did receive and made it available in the meeting folder today so that it could be approved by the task force for submission to the commission. I can pull that report up real quick. What I have included here is the body of the report. I have an appendix, which is a printout of the outages as they existed at the time of the writing of the report, and I have copies to the recent special investigations that have been closed by the outage committee. And that will all be attached to the report from the task force to the commission. So I would take any feedback that you have at this time on the report, any corrections, additions, any suggestions. Otherwise, I would ask Vicki for you to call for an approval of the report to the commission.
Okay, great. Can I get a motion for approval of the report?
Carl Stevens, I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Carl. Can I get a second?
Tina seconds.
Jeff Irvin, I'll second.
Thanks, Jeff. Any discussion? Okay, anyone opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thanks for the report, Daryl. Okay. Up next, we've got the EZNet users group. Kimberly.
Okay, so to date, an update, we actually have 17 PSAPs migrated, and 18th is in progress right now, and that's Morgan County. There are some troubles going on in Morgan County right now with audio path, so I'm getting updates from our tech that went out on site to assist with that cut. So from a July perspective, it's pretty busy. There's quite a few PSAPs that are scheduled that are going to be able to migrate over, which is exciting. And I do believe we're adding in JeffCom to the July list. So those PSAPs that have migrated over have been successful. We're not tracking any open tickets or call quality issues on the EZNet. So getting to that point has been a little bit of a challenge. And so this is kind of a big call out to all the PSAPs authorities. We talked about it on our call this week already, but it's absolutely essential that you're ready and prepared for this migration. So if you're scheduled for December, you should be thinking about your preparation now. It takes time to get your vendors aligned. It takes time for you to get your site prep ready to go. So it's absolutely essential that you're prepared on your end. So when CenturyLink is ready to install equipment and start doing the testing for pre-migration, that you're ready to support that. That's really the pre-migration. Anticipate having issues. That's what pre-migration is for. It's to figure out call quality. It's to figure out the connectivity of all the equipment. That is where you really just isolate, troubleshoot, and make sure everything is good to go for that migration. But what we're finding is a lot of the PSAPs authorities are not ready, or their vendors aren't ready, and then that puts PSAPs in this to be determined stage and status, which can really jeopardize our entire schedule. So we need to do our part and make sure we're ready. If you are confused about your requirements, if you're confused about if your site is ready to go, that's what we're here for. So that's what the user group can assist you with. We can help get you connected. We can talk to your CPE vendor if need be. And we have lots of case studies about problems that other PSAPs may be encountered with CPE configurations that we can put your vendor in contact with to make sure they are looking at your system and then making changes accordingly. So really this is on all of us to make sure we're doing our part so we can get through these deployments, get them migrated, and make sure that we're falling well within that grant timeline. So from a big picture perspective, it's going well. We definitely need to start getting everybody else that has been delayed scheduled and on the calendar. Cindy is our primary point of contact with CenturyLink as our project manager, and she is reaching out to PSAPs that have been in that delayed status for various reasons. Some of it was lockdowns from COVID-19. So she should be reaching out to you soon to see how we can work you back in the schedule to get your pre-migration started and then hopefully get that migration scheduled. But I think the best news overall is how successful those PSAPs, the 18 and hopefully 19 after Morgan County is, or I'm sorry, 17 and then the 18 with Morgan County after today, how successful they have been once they've migrated over. So that's what we're really monitoring and paying close attention to. So does anybody have any questions about the EZINet project? Okay, just one more item about scheduling. So we have our monthly meetings for PSAPs authorities, the CenturyLink project team. Your CPE vendors are welcome to join us, and I highly encourage that they do join us so they can hear about your project. And then once you're within that 30 days of migration, you're going to be invited to a weekly meeting. So if you're 30 days out, anticipate getting an email invite from Daryl to get you scheduled so you can start getting on these weekly calls with us.
And if you believe that you should be getting invites for either the ESINet users group and you're not, or the weekly meetings and you're not, please let me know. Everybody uses slightly different calendar applications out there, so sometimes those invites don't work correctly. So let me know and I can make sure to fix that for you.
Great, that's all I have, Vicki. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kimberly?
This is Daryl. Not questions, just a couple comments. One is I want to express my appreciation to Lita for, Kimberly mentioned that she's loaned out her tech today, who's in Morgan County helping with that migration. That's definitely going above and beyond for the 911 community in the state, and I want to thank Lita for providing that additional service. And then a lot of people heard my my soapbox speech yesterday, but I'll give it again today for those who didn't hear it, is that the reason why the scheduling is so important is that we cannot reimburse through the 911 grant for the non-recurring charges until after you've migrated. And that grant period essentially ends, practically ends at the end of 2021. So if we go beyond the end of 2021 in our migrations, that means the PSAPs at the end of the migration will not be reimbursed for their non-recurring charges, and that would be a travesty. So it's very important to me that we make sure that everybody gets migrated before the end of 2021. Getting an extension to that would literally take an act of Congress. So we want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in that position.
That's why that's very important.
Yep.
Okay. Next up is the GIS committee. Matt Gage, was he on the call?
Yes.
There you are.
Hey, but I think Daryl was going to take it this time.
That's right.
So we've only had help. We've only had held one meeting so far. At that meeting, I started the meeting off, and then we held an election for a more permanent chair, and Matt Gage was elected. Congratulations, Matt. I know you'll do a great job with that. We have not scheduled the next meeting yet, but I did send out a doodle poll for the first meeting, or for the first week in August, to schedule that. I believe we've got some discussions to have. We have some discussions that we have to have between now and then, as well as knowing exactly, knowing once and for all what's really going to happen with the 911 funding bill. Well, we're hearing that the governor will sign it tomorrow, which is great. And once we know that for a fact that that has been signed, I think that'll give us some more options moving forward as well. Matt, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think just a generalization would be we're just in our initial pathfinding stages. What's going to be needed from us, as well as exploring the NINA standards for the data.
Looks like we got a request from Lita to add another member to that list. So
yeah, you can just send me, if anybody has anybody they would like to add to the GIS committee or any of the committees, just email me and I can add them. There's also a page on the task force website. If you go to email lists, go to email lists, and hopefully you don't have to wait as long as that. There is a join now button for each of the committees, and that'll actually take you to the listserv for that committee. And by joining the listserv, you're joining the committee.
great. All right. Well, thanks, Matt, for stepping up. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Up next, we've got the Colorado Public Safety Broadband Update. Ed Mills, are you on the call? Okay.
I'm waiting.
Hearing nothing. PSCS report. Is Deanie on the call?
Hi, Vicki. I am. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to the remote meeting last Thursday. So I don't have an update.
Okay. All right. The SWIC report, Glenn Kleitsch.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on today. Just a quick update, a couple of things I've been working on. Back on June 12th, my agency awarded $4.8 million allocated by the legislature for grant funding to schools for interoperable communications between schools and PSAPs. 10 different schools received funds in that third round of the SAFER grant program. We're a bit unsure on the future of the program based on state budgets being down this year alone, $2.8 billion. So we'll see how that shakes out for the next couple rounds as it was allocated for originally. Worked on expanding some IPAWS usage into Chaffee County. They're up and running right now, working on Kit Carson, San Juan, several other counties as well. Working with several agencies on some IPAWS issues. If anybody has any problems, please let me know. I'm working on with Kimberly on one right now, up with Larimer County. Got a contact from Hinsdale County. They were having some communications issues on their cellular network and landline as well. They asked for some help. I reached out to my federal partners with Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, Infrastructure Security Agency, and they approved a technical assistance for a needs analysis. And we brought into the mix Mineral County, neighboring county. They've had similar problems when you're at the end of the line. Not a lot of motivation for providers to enhance service into areas where the winter population's under 1,000, summer population hits 4,000 to 10,000. But when they've had numerous outages over the past 30 to 60 days, and they were extended outages 5 hours or more, makes public safety's reliance on radio networks that much more critical. But also when the cellular networks are down, citizens trying to call 911 are unable to do so in many of the areas. So we're going to do a needs analysis. We should have a report done on that within 60 to 75 days. It doesn't, all it's going to do is confirm the problem. Doesn't actually round up any money, but I brought Ed Mills into the mix and some federal partners as well to see if we could find some funding to enhance some coverage back in the remote areas down in the Southwest Mountains. And that's my end of report, unless there's any questions.
Great. Thanks, Glenn. So looks like we've got Tracy Murdoch on the line that actually can give us an update on the public safety broadband update. Tracy, you want to give us a little update?
Hi, yeah, sure. Thanks, Vicki. So as I've been working with Ed Mills, and yesterday we spoke about the FirstNet roadmap and getting Colorado's public safety's input into how the money that we have, that's not taxpayer money, it's not controlled by any vendor or congressional approval, it's what public safety kind of spend this money, and getting Colorado's voice on how it should be spent to develop the network. And so we're doing workshops online, and we also have a survey which I can send Daryl if the group is interested to you, and you can forward on to them. And it's just it asks, tell us a little bit about yourself, and like what agency are you, local, are you state, what's the discipline, and then just what's your opinion on these different domains based on the roadmap. Ed is also working on a podcast about just kind of what's going on with Colorado and public safety broadband, and just things are continuing to chug along. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. Anybody have any questions for Tracy? Okay. Appreciate that update. Division of Fire Prevention and Control Report, Monica.
Thanks, Vicki. Just about 3 weeks ago, I sent an email to our 911 community folks asking them to weigh in on the draft recommendations that were formulated by the commission. I received all responses were can live with or in support of. I reported that from the 911 perspective, the commission at our meeting on Tuesday. All of the draft recommendations were passed unanimously by the commission, and now we're in the phase of preparing our final report to the legislature, which is due in August.
Great. Any questions for Monica? Okay. Thanks, Monica.
Hold on, sorry, I was on mute. Monica, can you give us a summary or just a quick overview of what some of those recommendations might be for the 911 community?
They really don't impact us greatly. What they will impact us on is the mutual aid recommendation. And I actually have, the rest are related to creating a funding source for that's different than the current wildland fire mechanism. And then some other recommendations that give some support to the fire agency that sends incident commanders to a wildland fire response. The one that will impact 911 the most is the mutual aid change. And Mike Morgan and I are actually meeting next week, where I'm hoping to really sit down with him and define what the impact to us is going to be from a 911 perspective, so that we can then weigh in more heavily as to how that procedurally will work out.
Okay.
That's the best I have right now, Daryl.
Okay. I think it's good that we have you in there monitoring this. I just want to make sure that if there are any legislative recommendations regarding 911 from this commission or anything that will require changes at the PSAP level, that everybody be made aware of those.
Right.
So thank you for being part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, back to Mike's support of having the 911 voice be a voting member of that commission, that he really made that happen. So good job, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I have that information, I'll begin to share that with our 911 group.
Great, thank you.
Great. Okay, up next we've got old business, the approval of the resolution establishing a goal for statewide text and 911 coverage. Kimberly?
Okay, so from the last meeting, we took action on identifying the intent of the task force, that we want to assist everybody in Colorado. And so Tracy worked on a draft resolution for the task force to consider, and I believe it got added to the folder of materials. So hopefully everybody had a chance to review it. And I know Daryl is pulling it up right now. Great, and I know Tracy's on the line too, and this is her awesome work. So Tracy, did you want to walk through it for everybody? She can't get off mute. *6, perhaps. If not, I'm happy to.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep. Oh, great. This was just a first attempt after the last meeting to capture the concepts where the task force really wanted to have a goal and then communicate to authorities and PSAPs across the state what that goal was, and find out for those PSAPs and authorities that don't have text to 911 what hurdles or impediments they might have, so that those could be brought back to the task force to see if connections can be made and there could be some collaboration and or efficiencies, just information sharing. So again, this is just a draft resolution, pretty benign, but it sets forth the goal, and then that the task force officers and or their designees are to reach out to those that do not have text to 911 and kind of visit and do that information gathering for further consideration, hopefully to make progress and actually implement text to 911 statewide for Colorado.
Great. So did everybody have a chance to review this resolution? Does anybody have any comments, corrections?
This is Carl. My only thing is, do we want to add like a sentence basically saying why we want text to 911? But otherwise, I think that it looks great. You know, either for the hearing impaired or those that can't call 911.
It's a very good point. Sarah, is there a paragraph there where that something like that would be appropriate to describe why the whys?
Maybe added to this paragraph, this whereas.
Yeah, I think that can be expanded upon to capture what Carl was commenting.
I think the things you'd probably want to add there would be, that it's a critical method of communication for members of the deaf, hearing, blind community, and also for hearing individuals who are in a position where it may be dangerous for them to vocalize a 911 call.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl, this is Cheryl.
Yeah, Cheryl.
It is also an option for me as well.
Correct.
Right. Accessibility. The other piece that I think we've always driven home on that is if you don't have great cell connectivity, sometimes you actually can get a text through where you can't necessarily get a voice call through. I know that's a smaller percentage of that, but that is another kind of driving force for us.
Vicky, this is Monica. It's a smaller percentage in the metro area, but not so much in the mountain region where we have more search and rescues, where we're more inclined to get a text dialogue in lieu of a voice conversation. And I actually appreciate Carl's recommendation only because of who might see this document and who we would put it in front of potentially, whether it be not just the commission, the Utilities Commission, but even legislators to understand the importance of why the text is so critical. So, the great suggestion, Carl.
Yep, I agree.
Maybe as a suggestion, rather than holding this up to make more changes, we could, I don't know if the task force would be comfortable voting on it as is, with the understanding that some additional whereas information is going to be added before it's signed. Or would everybody be more comfortable bringing this back again next month with those changes?
Daryl, what we could do is work on that paragraph real quick and then put it back in front of the committee towards the end of the meeting.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Only other question I had, I just now noticed it, you've got me as the signatory. Who usually signs resolutions? Is it usually the chair, or is it normal for the secretary to sign it?
It can be
Okay.
both, Daryl. I mean, you can have the chair and the secretary then says it's a duly authorized by the vote of the task force. That's kind of the secretary's role.
Okay.
So either way would be sufficient. If you're more
Okay.
comfortable, I'll make that change too while the meeting is going on.
It doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure we're, following normal practice.
This is Cheryl.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Can we add that to our agenda on our next meeting? On the 28th.
You're talking about the accessibility committee?
Yes.
Yes, but I think the question is, are we going to try to approve it today at this meeting prior to the next one?
Well, our next meeting is a month away, so I think it'd be good to approve it now.
This is Monica. Yeah, Vicky, this is Monica. I would agree with that because I'm working with the few counties already that are the outliers and I'm struggling. So if I had something such as this to maybe put in front of some administrators, it would perhaps be a little bit helpful. I'm not having to twist any arms yet, but I'm really down to the last few folks.
Thank you, Monica. I would agree with you. I mean, I understand where Cheryl's coming from, but I feel like if we delay this for another 2 months before we're voting on it, it doesn't push forward basically our resolve, which is what we're trying to get through in the first place.
I think we should get it done today, and if people are kind of adamant about getting changes made to it, we can amend it at the next meeting.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Great job. Great, Joe. That sounds like a good idea. Cheryl, are you all right with that?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
I move that we approve moving forward and leave it to the authors to make the modifications suggested.
Can we delay the vote until they make the tweaks and then we'll revisit toward the end of the meeting?
Sure.
Everybody okay with that? All right. All right. Well, thank you, Kimberly and Tracy, for working on that. Appreciate it. Next up, we've got new business discussion for 911 apps that you should be aware of. Daryl.
So I've been, I don't know if Jennifer's on the call, but kudos to Jennifer for tracking this stuff and making me aware of it as she sees information about it. But there's 3 new apps that I've been made aware of that relate to 911, and I put links to information about all 3 of them. One is a new feature that's been added to Google's flagship phone, which is the Pixel phone. It has a new feature that's built in on Google Pixel 4, which is their latest version of the phone, but you can also download the app for older versions, and I've got it on my Google Pixel 3. And it does what a lot of these safety check apps do, which is you can set it for different things, such as if you tell it I'm going on a walk in the woods by myself, and it should take about 30 minutes, and if I don't check in 30 minutes, I want you to text this group of people. It does not automatically text 911. As it says here, there is no option for it to automatically call 911, but if any of their loved ones get a text saying, I went on a walk and I never checked back in, those people are probably going to call 911 as their next act. So you should know that about this feature and make your telecommunicators aware of it. And it's loading. This page is loading very slowly right now, and that's my fault. But there's screen captures on here of what it looks like on the phone. Different options that are now available through that Google safety app. And if I had a computer that was robust, I would actually demonstrate it for you through a screen capture on my phone, but I don't have that ability right now. So just check that link and read the information. And then if we have any questions about how that works, I can maybe do some testing on my own phone and see what happens. Another one is called Noonlight. And I'm trying to remember what Noonlight's about. It is a public safety app that can be downloaded in iPhone or Android, and it is essentially a panic button. You hold the button down to call for 911, essentially, without having to dial it. It also integrates with a number of alarm systems, and I'm not entirely sure of the entire ecosystem of alarms that it integrates with, but I know that Jennifer said that she has received, that they have, at her PSAP, they have received some calls from a Noonlight call center. So these aren't calls that are coming in directly to 911, but they're going through a call center before going to the 911 center. So you should make sure that your 911 call takers are familiar with this service. Again, there is a link to the web page in there. And then the last one is something fairly innovative called What 3 Words. This is being used right now in Europe and Australia with some degree of popularity. I haven't heard of it being used that much in the US, but it can be used anywhere. Essentially, this is a group that has taken the entire planet and broken it down into 200-meter wide squares, and then used a system where they can identify each specific square by the use of 3 words. So there are 3 words that are associated with each of those squares on the entire planet. So if you look up what the 3 words that you have, what the 3 words are that match your square on the planet, then supposedly you can give those 3 words to anyone else, and they can plug them into this website, and it will tell them the exact latitude and longitude of that location. The idea being that that is an easier way to verbally tell someone your latitude and longitude without reading out a string of numbers.
Daryl?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. This is Mandy. What 3 Words app has actually been brought to my attention through the San Miguel County Sheriff's Office, who their emergency manager, along with some of their Sheriff's Office administration, is very interested in utilizing and implementing this app into their center. And they gave me the heads up, being in the region, that might be something, if they start pushing and publicizing, that we here at Wesco might hear and need to be aware of. So just to your comment that you hadn't heard of it being used in the United States, here in Colorado, there's a center that's taking a pretty close look at it and wanting to do public education on it.
Okay.
So
thank you.
This is Vicki. So does the app, if you have the app, then I'm assuming you can use location services and it's going to tell you what your 3 words are there for the location it shows you at?
That's my understanding, that you can ask it what 3 words correlate to your current location. And then I just typed in an address on their website, and now everybody knows my home address, but my 3 words are rich, ends, and fats. So if I gave somebody those 3 words, they could then plug them into this website and get the location that corresponds with that.
Huh.
I can see that also potentially being useful for first responders out in the field if you need to give them a latitude and longitude and you don't want to read them a list of 20 digits. You could give them those 3 words and they could plug it into the app on their phone and presumably pull up this location.
Daryl?
Cheryl?
I have a life alert with GPS. And if I push the button, they can pinpoint my location, exactly where I am.
Good.
It seems this might be important for us to know about, the PSAPs to know about, because we get international travelers, especially to like the ski resorts, national parks.
Mm-hmm. And another feature I saw on this when I was perusing their website is that it gives because I'm, my web browser is set to English as the default language. It's giving me 3 words that are in English, but they use different words from other languages if that's your primary language. So you could get a different 3 words if you have it set up for Spanish, for instance.
Ah, that could be problematic.
But presumably, if you type in those 3 words, they still take you to the same location on the map. So I think we probably need to familiarize ourselves with this and play with it a little bit to understand all the ramifications. And that is it on that item. Unless anybody has any questions.
This is Jackie.
Jackie?
Just some food for thought on that. I know that this came up at a Eurisa NEDA conference about, I don't know, recently, 10 years ago. And recently on another conversation I had with Eurisa NEDA working group, it came up. And Eurisa, which is the addressing standards, is very leery of this. Just food for thought. That's kind of Eurisa is kind of like, we're really leery of this. Thanks.
Jackie, this is Monica. Are you talking about Noonlight or what 3 words? Nina's been trying to, Nina's been trying to work with Noonlight and frankly not getting a lot of headway.
Okay, yeah, I'm talking about the what 3 words. Sorry. It's like I said, Eurisa trying to get standardized addressing with NEDA and with GIS protocol are pretty leery of the what 3 words.
Well, I know the FCC has a proceeding that I think was instituted by NASNA to look at, the general issue of 911 apps that the FCC has just been sitting on and doing nothing. But it also seems that if there are apps out there that people are going to be using, are we going to just ignore them?
Exactly. Yeah, regardless of whether they approve it or not, if we got users that are using it, then we at least need to be informed.
Well, the biggest concern I've always had with these apps is that if they require the PSAP to have a browser open with a specific interface to receive information from the app, we could end up with 1,000 browser windows you have to have open at the PSAP for one for each app. And my hope is that they would all work with a company that aggregates the data like RapidSOS, so that you can have just one interface open at the PSAP. And I think that's the sort of thing that probably needs to be encouraged with these companies. Yep. In Jennifer's case, she said that the Noonlight company was actually calling her on their 911 lines, or maybe it was their non-emergency lines, but they weren't receiving it through an app interface. They were actually getting it through their phone lines.
This my 3 words, would that be that they give you a call and you would only need that if the location doesn't work on the call. I think text location isn't as accurate.
Yeah, so theoretically they could call and they could give you their location by telling you the 3 words that associate with where they are. Or it could be that it's not even the caller. The caller might not be where the emergency is. Maybe somebody else notified them of an emergency, so they're relaying it to you with those 3 words. And theoretically, a dispatch center could use it internally as well by, to give location information to field units.
Okay. Very interesting. All right. Next up, we've got the.
Before we move on, is there a need? Are there enough apps out there that there's a need for maybe some organization? It could be this. It could be Neenah APCO. It could be the PUC. To kind of say these are the only apps we're going to work with.
I think it's hard to say that because there are new ones that come out and old ones that die off quickly. So it's hard to come up with a definitive list. I know that NASNA has been involved in this topic in the past by writing letters to the FCC about what they hope to see in terms of development of apps and making sure that they all meet minimum requirements. And APCO and Neenah have both produced guidelines for best practices for apps. I don't know, it may be time to revive those efforts and see if there's any updating that needs to be done to those best practices and file new information with the FCC.
And I think what's needed more so is some type of reference. So, if one of these things does route into a ECC, there's a place where someone can look it up if they're unfamiliar and find out what it's about. I mean, I don't think it can be ignored.
That's a very good idea, Jeff. Maybe that's something that Neenah would want to take up. It seems like it's up their alley, creating a website where they basically catalog all of these apps where you can look them up if you get information about one of them.
You don't want more on your plate there, Darrell?
Well, that sounds like a national job, not a Colorado specific job. If Neenah doesn't want to do it, we can do it on a statewide basis. But I think Neenah would be the place to start.
This I don't disagree with you, Darrell. It's really a national problem, not a state problem.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to Brian and see what his thoughts are on it.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the apps? Okay, next up is the 911 funding legislation. Darrell.
So thank you, Jackie, for letting us know. It sounds like the governor is planning on signing our 911 funding bill tomorrow. I won't take up a lot of time on this because I think we need to take a step back and take a new look at what the bill requires so that we can make sure that we're hitting all of the steps that are needed. But one of the first things I plan on doing is holding a statewide webinar separate from the task force meeting. I'll send it out to all of the 911 contacts that I have, inviting them to join. And we'll also record that as well to kind of go through everything that's in the bill so that you understand what the changes are. But in addition to that, I do want to let people know that there will be some commission proceedings coming up. We're going to have a proceeding to set the statewide 911 surcharge rate that is now authorized in the bill that's passing. We will need a proceeding. These can all be the same proceeding and probably will be the same proceeding. We will, so in that same proceeding, we will also be setting the new threshold at which applications will be required for local 911 surcharges to be raised. Right now it's 70 cents and it has been 70 cents since 1990. This bill allows the commission to adjust that for inflation and the needs of the state. So we'll be setting that in a proceeding. And then based on both of those together, we need to take the average of the statewide 911 surcharge, we need to take the average of the local surcharges statewide, plus the new statewide surcharge, and that will be the new prepaid surcharge per transaction. So we'll be setting all 3 of those rates probably in one proceeding. There will also be a need for a rulemaking that will probably come after that proceeding, and an emergency rulemaking later on in the year, possibly in November. And then at that, probably the same time we conduct the emergency rulemaking, we'll also open a permanent rulemaking, and that will be for things like how the carriers will remit their surcharges to the commission. What forms they'll use. We'll be looking quite a bit at our existing statewide surcharges, like the telecommunications relay surcharge, to see what rules are in place for that, and probably duplicating a lot of that so we're not reinventing the wheel. But I just wanted to give a heads up to everybody that is coming, so be watching out for that. I also started to write a paper. I didn't get it done in time for today, but I started to write a short white paper on how that statewide 911 surcharge can be leveraged. Right now, I think I'll probably save this after I've had time to work through the details on it for that that statewide webinar I've talked about. But how that funding will be distributed will be based on concurrent sessions, which really matches how the tariff is structured. So it's very easy to see how you could set a surcharge rate statewide that is sufficient to reimburse all of the 911 authorities for what they're paying CenturyLink and tariff fees on the monthly recurring charge. But I have some ideas as well as how we can also utilize that to potentially pay for other types of expenses that are not currently in the tariff. But I think because I haven't had time to work that out in detail, I think I'm going to save that for the statewide webinar.
Daryl, I know I've suggested this before, but I think that adjusting the surcharge for inflation since it was adopted, which comes to about $1.30, is that's probably the minimum that's going to go to. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be safe for the PUC to adopt that as an interim surcharge, which would provide relief to some authorities while it's conducting the proceeding, come up with a final figure.
So the surcharge, the threshold, all three of those, the threshold, the statewide surcharge, and the prepaid surcharge can't go into effect until January 1st anyway. And the commission is required to publish those on October 1st. So the commission can't change the threshold yet. So we might as well take the time to see if they want to establish something that's higher than inflation. It'll be done through an open proceeding, so everybody will have a chance to weigh in on that.
Yeah. I just don't know if the proceedings will be finished by January 1st, and so that I don't think we need to wait to finish a proceeding to final number if there's the interim surcharge that would make sense. But we can
we're required to finish it before October 1st.
Oh,
so
is that possible?
Yes, it is possible. It may not be easy, but it is possible, and that's the goal we're shooting for.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Anything else on the 911 funding legislation? Okay, up next we've got the September meeting. Are we doing this in person or virtual, Daryl?
So that was just my question to the group. We are scheduled on the meeting schedule that we chose at the beginning of the year. We chose to have our September meeting in Grand Junction. While I would love to go to Grand Junction, I would like to keep everybody safe as well. The state has told me that I'm not even going back into the office until at least the first week of September, which puts us very close to our September task force meeting. So I think my recommendation would be that we go ahead and plan on doing the September meeting virtually, but I wanted to get input from the rest of the task force before we make that change.
I think virtual would be prudent.
I agree.
Yeah, we our policy still is no outside meetings. I mean, it may change by then, but doesn't sound like we're having any near end date for this.
Okay.
And I would just reiterate this, Monica, that obviously attendance in a virtual format isn't being affected by that. So
All right.
virtual.
We've got 70 people on the call right now, which is great.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's just plan on having it virtually then in September, and then we'll revisit it at that meeting to see what we want to do in November.
Great.
I won't be able to do a man bun until December.
I'm looking forward to that, Jeff.
Jeff, they're out of style, buddy. FYI.
Well, they're kind of back style, so nobody can get their hair cut.
Okay, up next we've got open discussion, and we're actually ahead of schedule, which is good. Any items for open discussion?
Jennifer said she couldn't make it. She did text me, and she wanted me to mention that Colorado NINA APCO is gearing up for a virtual conference this year. There's going to be July 27th, 28th, and 29th. And if we go to the 2020 State Conference page, whoops, stop. The page jumped on me, so I went to the wrong page. There's information, there's a registration button, and there is, once it loads, there's also a schedule showing the event. Some of the items, some of the sessions are being recorded, so they'll be available after the fact, and some of them are going to be done live. So I just encourage everybody to take a look at that, and it is free this year because it's virtual. There's no registration fee, but you do have to register.
Great. Anything else for open discussion?
Just prior to us adjourning, Vicki, I did send over the revised resolution to you, Daryl, if you wanted to grab it real quick and display it, or I can if that's easier. Okay, so you should be able to see the revised resolution, hopefully. Yes, maybe?
Yes, you can see it. It's a little tiny.
There we go.
Better. Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, so Tracy pulled this information or this language off of the FCC's website just to keep it broad, but at least descriptive enough. So the addition would be, whereas the task force recognizes potentially life-saving benefits of text to 911, the ease of its use and the advantages of having alternate means of emergency communication for the general public, as well as the enhanced access text to 911 provides for people with disabilities such as use by deaf, hard of hearing, or speech disabled.
Add a phrase about or people beyond the range of voice communications. Something to that effect.
I mean, I guess it would be like, you know, folks with intermittent or, I mean, the specific issue is wireless, right? So it'd be intermittent or spotty wireless coverage, something like that.
Yeah, it actually extends the coverage area beyond what you can make a voice call.
Weak connectivity, perhaps.
There you go.
And I think that's what the intent of this more general sentence is from the FCC's website, advantages of having alternate means of emergency communication for the general public.
Yep, I agree.
We can get specific and list, like on our website, we have it listed out with being sick or having an medical emergency, a dangerous situation. You know, we kind of go through and list all of that. The FCC has just made it more of a general statement.
Yeah, I think the use of alternate means of emergency communication covers it.
Yep, I do too.
Because we also don't want it to list it too much where it makes it sound like it's limiting only in those areas.
I thought I understood Monica to suggest that that might be an important point for the rural authority she's still trying to get to sign up. That was the only reason I raised it.
It is for us.
So in other words, you want it more specifics to help kind of bolster the argument?
Yes.
Okay.
Just on the weak connectivity issue.
Okay.
And this is Monica. I have to agree because a couple of my discussions are, I just need some meat and potatoes behind that argument.
We've had numerous search and rescue incidents with folks in far up in federal lands where the only way they could communicate was via text. Their signal wasn't strong enough for voice. It's definitely an issue.
The University of Colorado, one of their programs, they filed comments in one of the Text 911 proceedings demonstrating how it's actually not the field strength is stronger, but it intermittently goes up and down. And so beyond a certain field strength, you can't maintain a session, but because text is it takes such a short time and keeps retrying, it can get out well beyond the areas where you can make a voice call.
Okay.
Okay, so do you want
I'd go with wireless signals rather than cell.
Signals are not strong enough to maintain voice communications.
I like the weak connectivity. I always defer to Matt's wordsmithing. I think he's excellent at it. I like that one.
For situations where wireless signal connectivity is weak.
Or you could just say situations with, yeah, that's probably better. I was going to say situations with weak wireless connectivity, but
either way.
Yeah, I think Matt's way is better. Even though it's passive voice.
Hey, I'm not a lawyer.
No, but you're a good writer.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. So are we ready for a motion on this language?
What's that, Cheryl? Listen. I will take that out. She what? Speech disabled. Change the wording. Change the wording on speech disabled, she said. Do what? Or just delete it? Oh, or just delete it.
Well,
or how is it? How should it? What's the proper? You have speech. Speech what? Issues. You have speech. I have speech issues. But I'm not disabled.
Okay, well, what's the proper terminology?
How about speech impaired?
This is Holly. You could also say for disabilities for those with hearing or speech loss.
Okay.
How does that sound, Cheryl? Hearing or speech loss?
Well, she hasn't really lost her speech. If you know her particular dialect of English.
Is impairment also a sensitive term?
Yes.
Okay.
You got smacked for saying that? Okay, so what's that, by who? Nina. Oh, Nina did that. Said that you should use that. So what is the proper? What's the proper language on that? And Cheryl. That I think hearing or speech for people with disabilities, such as used by deaf, hard of hearing, or speech. And just leave it at speech.
Well, how about if we just say provide the enhanced access text to 911 provides for people with speech or hearing disabilities?
Disabilities is a sensitive term.
Okay, well, speech or hearing
Loss,
differences.
challenges, difficulties.
What's that, Cheryl? What disabilities? For people with disabilities.
So I have an idea. What if we just put at the end here as well as universal access to 911?
Well, we could just say, I'm sorry, the universal access? What do you?
So it would say for situations where wireless signal connectivity is weak, as well as universal access to 911.
I like that.
Is that understood, though, to refer to people with communications challenges?
This is Holly. I agree. I think you can add universal access, but not specifically mentioning people with disabilities, considering that is what most people in disability community are advocating for, is text to 911. I think that would potentially be an issue, not mentioning specifically that this is being used for people with disabilities.
I agree.
Okay, so completely deleting anything about people with disabilities or deaf, hard of hearing, or speech.
Yes.
Okay.
No, this is Holly. I'm saying the exact opposite. I think you need to keep the word people with disabilities in that language. I think me and Cheryl are disagreeing on this, but I personally think that having it mention people with disabilities is a very important piece of this.
So what about not specifically mentioning just the types of disabilities, then just talking about the disabilities itself?
We just say communications disabilities.
Or just say disabilities.
Yeah, I would think as well as universal access to 911 for people with disabilities. Does that seem okay, Cheryl?
Yes.
Did I capture it?
Okay.
That looks good.
So Holly, does that cover what you were describing?
This is Holly. Yeah, I think that seems pretty all-encompassing. I don't know. I don't think you have to specifically mention, because there's lots of different disabilities that can benefit from text to 911.
Okay.
Indeed.
Cheryl, can you live with that?
Yeah, hello.
She's shaking her head.
Hey, Matt, did you have some input?
Yeah, I have a comment, but I need the opportunity to turn on the voice of the interpreter. The interpreter can interrupt. Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
We can hear you. I'm having a hard time understanding you.
Yes, but the interpreter tried to interrupt. tänkte på du kunde anrufa upp.
Did you want to present, Matt? Like, and type in a suggestion?
Jag tänkte på du var på mig, tänkte på du var mig. Du call in.
Interpreter's going to call in.
Ja. Ja, på tänkte på du här i amma, på tänkte på du kan ha boy.
Hey, Matthew, this is Holly. I can go ahead and interpret for you, Matthew. Go ahead. Okay, so this is Matthew, and I want to clarify as we're kind of going back and forth on this. I do understand all the different perspectives, but one thing that I'm hoping to mention, if that's okay with the group.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I guess, who is it that's going to be reading this? Who's the audience that will be reading this proclamation?
I think it's like citizens and county commissioners. This is Carl.
Yeah, I would say it's 911 authorities and PSAPs that we're trying to talk into adopting text to 911.
Okay, that makes sense. So with that being said, and knowing who the audience is, using the term disabilities, I think some may not really understand what the word disabilities means. So, for example, if I'm I just think there need. As a deaf person, I think that there should be an emphasis on using the term also deaf and hard of hearing. I don't think it should be a blank check, for just disabilities in general. I know Cheryl didn't like the term speech disabled, but I do think the terms deaf and hard of hearing should be included in that language. That's it. That's what I had to say.
And that's why we have you on board, Matthew.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate your perspective.
So I just made a modification. This is Kimberly. Matthew, can you let us know if that works for you?
Except put individuals first, putting individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing.
Might want to check the chat.
Yeah, people first.
Was a chat as well.
Doesn't have to read the word.
I'm just looking at this again, Matthew's saying.
So Holly, we also have a request, I believe, for blind. So I guess I'm just looking for some direction on how to make this all encompassing and not limiting.
So Holly, the phrase I've seen you use in the past is, I'm not going to get it in the right order, but deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, and speech impaired, or that's not the right term either, but.
We need some more letters in the word
This is Holly.
individuals.
This is Holly. The very generic term tends to be deaf, deafblind, deaf disabled, and hard of hearing. I don't know if Matthew and Luke, what your thoughts are on DDB, DDHH.
I think the audience, we need to be more specific if we're going to talk about all of those things.
And Matthew is saying, I do think that the DAT or the backward slash that you have in there would need to be removed.
Is speech challenged an appropriate term?
For me, I don't care. You can even put, can you add rocket scientists who have disabilities in there? What?
Okay, so including individuals who are deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind, or speech challenged. Does that work? Does that work?
And Matthew's saying, yep, that's good for me.
Luke? This is Cheryl. Is Luke on?
Luke is on. He's in chat.
Oh. Okay. Luke will provide comments in the chat.
Okay, so is everybody feel comfortable with the language now that we could have a motion on this? No. Okay, Luke, what is it you need?
Just look on there. Oh.
So this is Holly. The terms from the FCC, when we're talking about TRS, telecom relay services, and we're talking about those who use telecom relay services to connect to 911, the term is deaf, hard of hearing, and speech disabled. That is just a very blanket term that is used by the FCC when we talk about TRS related issues, because deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind, and speech disabled are the different categories that use TRS.
So I understood that disabled was a word that people are very sensitive to. So is it better to use it here though, because we're communicating with people who are don't have speech problems but are running PSAPs that we want to implement text 911?
I mean, Joe, there are a lot of differing ideas around those who accept the word disabled and those who don't. I mean, there are those in the disability community, not necessarily who are deaf or hard of hearing, who identify as disabled, who want that word to be used. There's also people like Cheryl who don't want to be called speech disabled. And there's also, deaf folks who prefer to be called deaf instead of disabled. So I think there's a wide continuum of people.
Okay. Well, I mean, the whole reason why we're putting this description in here is to provide the why. So I think it's important to mention this stuff. But as you said, Matt, who's your audience? We certainly don't want to misrepresent, but
I'm not sure we've answered the concern that Luke has brought forward, though, and I'm not quite sure how we can make it better for his comments.
I just asserted a rewrite of the. Go ahead.
Luke, this is Holly. You see what I just typed? I said, how about the term including the deaf, hard of hearing, deafblind community, and those who are speech challenged? That way it doesn't lump speech challenged with the deaf community.
it makes sense to me. And Holly, that was your perspective, right? Or was that Matt's?
That was Holly. I typed that in the chat. I'm waiting to see what Luke thinks about that new language. And Matthew is saying, I do think that looks better, having those separated out.
And Luke, how do you feel about this?
Just a quick item too. Some items from the chat has to do with the wireless signal connectivity. So we had a recommendation to change weak to impaired, and then another one to actually use the word unreliable instead. And I do think that that's probably a great change, but wanted to make sure everybody has eyes on that too before I delete the other two recommendations.
I like that.
It's sufficient.
Matt, you said let's go fishing?
I said it's sufficient. I'll let you go fishing.
I like the other answer better.
That was funny.
So Holly, where are we on the other language?
I was just waiting for Luke to respond. I'm not sure if he's still on the call.
He said omit last one, it's just me.
Oh.
He said I'm here.
This is Jeff. I offered up a rewrite. Has everybody had a chance to look at that?
I like it. I might hyphenate speech challenge, but I think, we hired or we voted Luke into this position to speak for that community. So
Matt's actually the person we voted on today. Matthew Ruggles.
yeah, I'm sorry.
This is Holly. I personally don't love the term communication challenges because it's not that deaf people don't have a challenge communicating, just hearing people have a challenge communicating with them because they don't know sign language. So I don't love that term. I'm not sure if Matthew or Luke agree, but I don't love the term communication challenges because deaf people communicate just fine when it's just them.
So this is Daryl. It's now after noon, and I know we wanted to get this done today, but I'm starting to think that maybe we should put this off and have the accessibility committee take a stab at this language and then come back at the next meeting.
That's going to be 2 months. Can we approve this and then amend it at the next meeting if necessary? So Monica can use it in the meantime to actually get services out there for the deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind community.
I feel like the urgency is here. So I recognize that Jeff's wording, there were some issues with it. What do you think of the one that Kimberly's typed up from your suggestions? Does this adequately cover what you're looking for?
What do you think, Holly?
I mean, I think Matthew is the person who is the voting member or is going to be the voting member. So I would ultimately turn that decision over to him.
Matthew, what are
my
you?
concern is that the priority is to get the text messaging, text 911 available to this group of people more than to avoid insulting them. And so I'd like to come out of the meeting today with this approval of this, even if we have to amend it subsequently.
I agree. I'm not getting that. Move. I'm sorry, Cheryl, I'm not getting that. Cheryl was typing, or do they see that? No. Cheryl saying move to pass. With understanding that we will discuss further at at our July meeting on the 28th.
Okay. So was that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. So I've got a motion on the floor to pass this resolution, or I'm sorry, proclamation. Anyone for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none. Anyone who is opposed to this, please say nay. Okay, proclamation passes. Thank you everyone for your input. This is important stuff. I think it's a good move in the right direction for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Okay, any other items for open discussion? Okay,
That public notice, did you get that?
Say that again.
I sent the public notice to Darrell about the FCC asking for comment on the T-Mobile outage.
Yes, I did see that. Thank you.
Yeah, a number of specific questions. You'll probably just post that to the site or email it out.
I'll email it out. Right.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So I have an up here next, Jason Jackson with Intrado. Do we want to take a
Yes,
break?
10-minute break, and then
Yeah.
Or 15 if you think that's more appropriate, and then we can do the presentation after that. Jason, are you still on the line? Jason?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to take a break then.
Yeah. Let's Vicki, it's up to you, of course, but I suggest we take 10 minutes and then I'll reach out to Jason, make sure he's still able to present.
Okay, so let's get started back up at 12:20.
This is how.
I want to congratulate Matthew on being our newest member. Go ahead.
And Matthew's saying thank you.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the communication access here. I'm trying to figure out how it is that the interpreter can voice for me, but as of right now, they're only able to see my signing and interpret what you guys are saying and not able to voice for me.
We'll get the bugs worked out.
I'm going fishing.
Okay, all right. Well,
To appoint an alternate.
all right, everyone. So let's reconvene at 12:25. That'll give us a little time. Thanks. OMG.
What's number? The internet number?
There we go. Can you hear us now? Hello?
Hi.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is Holly. We're just testing why the interpreter wasn't able to be heard, but I think we figured it out. So yeah, interpreter, you just need to press *6 to go off and on mute. So if you hit *6 again, it'll mute you, but when then Matthew is talking, go ahead and hit *6 again and it'll unmute you and we'll be able to hear you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Holly.
Sure thing.
Yeah, I didn't know. That's a new feature for me, so I've never used that feature before. Awesome. Now I can make my comments. Everything else that I missed, that's all right. That's all right. But yeah, discussing the terminology is a challenge, trying to come to an agreement.
And for the interpreter, I think Matthew might just think he's talking to me directly right now.
Oh.
Everyone else is on hold. Everyone else is on a break right now. So I think me and Matthew
Right,
can
thank you.
chat right now. Thank you.
All right.
All right, well, it's 12:25. Is everybody ready for, I'm hoping Daryl got a hold of our
I think he was
interpreter.
on. He just couldn't get off of mute in time. So,
Got it. Okay.
Jason, you have a presentation for us? If so, you should be able to click present now at the bottom of your screen to do that. Otherwise, I'll just let you take over the audio. Jason, are you there?
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
There you
go.
There we go. Sorry about that. I actually need Holly to contact my service provider on my street. My internet keeps going in and out, so it's like every time I hit present, it won't go. It's just spinning. So I will just have a conversation with you guys, and then I will email the presentation to you, Daryl, later on.
That sounds
good.
good.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for your time. I will try to keep this short and sweet for you guys. Kind of want to start out with a story, just to kind of give you guys an example of one of the main things we're talking about. So I work for Intrado. I took over their GIS and spatial solutions almost a year ago now. And we partner with CenturyLink throughout Colorado. And really kind of want to talk about some of the advantages, especially the EZNet customers in Colorado already have and may not be aware of. At one point in time in my past, I was the director of 911 for the state of Alabama. So I appreciate all the things you guys are working on. It brought back some good memories of having those conversations. And then it brought back the headache of I'm not smart enough to solve some of those things. So I'm glad you guys are working on it. So a story I wanted to tell you, share with you guys before I kind of break into some of the things that we do with CenturyLink. We sold an EZNet to a state instead of each county or city. There was a state that had bought an entire EZNet system that we sold. Now with the CenturyLink EZNet, you actually have that spatial interface or data portal, as some people may refer to it as. Data repository is another term I've heard used before, but you have that built into the EZNet feature. So you have the QA and QC, the different validations. you have all that where, and then, to send it to the ECRF, the XY coordinates and so forth when possible, and as well as to the LVF. And so that actually comes with your CenturyLink ExeNet system. But there was a state that had purchased a statewide ExeNet system and did not realize, they changed leadership during the process, did not realize that the functionality of that. And through that process, they end up issuing a separate RFP for GIS services, which is, again, what we're going to talk about today. But part of that was they wanted a data portal, repository, so to speak, and even to kind of collect that data, have it all in one location, send it on to the ECRF and so forth to have it routed. Long story short, they had already purchased that and then went out and did an RFP and purchased it again, only to realize later that they had already purchased it, despite efforts and so forth. I guess there was just a misunderstanding, and it happened right before I got here, just a misunderstanding on what they had purchased versus what they didn't. And when they ended up purchasing it, and they ended up spending a few million more for this different services and so forth. And in the end, what happens is they selected a different vendor who then does that work, but then sends it to us as well. And as a former state director, you and I both know how money can get tight at times and how you definitely don't want to waste money and so forth. And not that I'm saying that they did, but a lot of times people do not realize that you're purchasing with the CenturyLink ExeNet, you're actually purchasing that data repository, that spatial interface that comes with it. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So when you purchase it, the CenturyLink ExeNet, for those, I think I heard there were 17 already in progress. They actually have our product called EGDMS, and it's our Enterprise Geospatial Data Management System. And what that does is it provides all the validations, provides all the QA, QC. We upload your GIS data to the EGDMS and then through the spatial interface. It validates it consistent with the NENA guidelines of 98, +%. Provisions the GIS data into the ExeNet CCRFs and LVS, and then it provides ongoing validation and reporting. Usually on a monthly basis is how most people set up. Again, it can be set up in different ways. We take that GIS data and we populate it into the ExeNet geocoding system. So we take like static telephone numbers, subscriber records, and we geocode it using the customer's GIS data. The X and Y, the latitude and longitude for each location, is then provisioned into the location databases. And then when available, the XY data will be used by the ECRF to determine the primary route for the call. So essentially, when you purchase the CenturyLink ExeNet, you have this built-in functionality of all the validations, all the reporting, and then it also, clearly that's the spatial interface that it uses then to provide that I3 type routing that everyone's trying to get to. One of the perks of that is you've already purchased it. So you don't have to go out and buy a different repository, a different management system. That's already given to you. And one of the things that we in Trado can do with the help through CenturyLink is we can provide different methodologies of how to do that. So if there's a bunch of error reports and so forth, we can provide professional services to come in and help clean that up for you. We can use our analyst. You'll be assigned a project manager and analyst. We can work through all any issues that may pop up and then get everything right going into the EGDMS system. And then you guys can maintain it going forward. We have two different products that can help out with that. One's a MapSag, and it's more of a GIS professional type user. I would not classify as that. I am from the great state of Alabama, so I cannot claim professional in any type of situation. But we also have a web editor for the novice GIS user. Sometimes you have those counties or cities where your GIS professional is wearing 12 different hats, and so sometimes they may not be as they may not have gone to school for that. It may be something that's just kind of been tacked on to them along the way. So we have a web editor that they can use as well. completely cloud-based. And one of the advantages with those products is everything is automated into EGDMS, into our data repository. So if you make a change in one thing, whether you make it into the EGDMS or you make it into one of the products, editing products that we have, everything is automated through. So that is the one advantages of you don't have to continue to manage multiple sets of data. One of the other things that has become one of our more popular offerings as well is on the back end. Once we've cleaned up your data, we have a service called through CenturyLink called TDMS. It's Transitional Data Management System. It's essentially where we take your GIS data based on your GIS road center lines, and we drive changes to your MSAG. So think of it as taking your GIS data, taking your MSAG data, combining the two, syncing the two up, and then creating a GIS-based MSAG or a geo-MSAG. Kind of like a list before the carriers can give you that location information server. We kind of provide that to you up front. One of the biggest things about that people are falling in love with is the fact that you now, especially in this new environment, you don't have to maintain an MSAG data set and then a GIS data set. Once we've cleaned up your GIS data set, we go to your MSAG data set. Any errors that pop up, we work with the carriers on that. We combine the two, and now we just have one data set that we maintain. And then it filters all the changes back if there's, into the GIS, and if there's any MSAG errors, those automatically get reported as well. And then all of that is automated, and it takes time and money away from the PSAPs of having to try to manage those two different sets as well. And so essentially just, with our partnership with CenturyLink and having Ethernet customers, we have the ability to, one, you've already purchased a spatial interface and you've already purchased that data portal, so to speak. And so you already have the built-in validations and you already have all the QA, QC that you need according to the NENA guidelines. And so we can just take your data, upload it into the system as you're preparing for onboarding or turning on your EZNet, and then we can validate all your information. We can either help you correct the information, you can correct it on your own through the error reporting, or then you can also, there's other products that can help you automate that process and make it much smoother as well. And that's really the thing that a lot of people that we've noticed that they're not realizing what they're purchasing. Sometimes when there's so many different moving parts of an EZNet, between the fiber that needs to be put in, to the call routing itself, to having to have your call handling upgraded and whatnot. And so one of the things that we just really wanted to advise and kind of help put a spotlight on is you've already purchased some of these things that some of our competitors who are good at what they do. I'm not knocking them in the least bit, but you've already purchased that, and you don't have to go out and purchase any additional things and so forth. If you have purchased a different vendor to help with the GIS, that's perfectly good too. We do have what we call a MoveIt script. It's kind of like think of a box account almost. They can upload their data through that, and it gets automated into the EGDMS, our data repository, our portal system. And so therefore we can work with other vendors and they can submit data on your behalf and so forth. If there's errors that come up, depending on how you want it set up, they get notified or you get notified, and we can work through it that way. And the way we've set it up too is our EGDMS, our spatial interface, our data portal is essentially kind of like this core cog in the wheel. It kind of drives everything. And the way everything is now, we have designed all of our products to be automated with. So everything from call routing, from the ECRF and the LVF to going back to making just normal GIS edits, and our products that can help with that, or our services that can help with that. Everything is automated all the way through. So if you make a change in one, it will backfill or go forward if need be, and make the other changes in the other systems. So we've tried to create it very user friendly to where we're just maintaining one data set instead of having multiple data sets. And even kind of going beyond next gen 911, we have a new product coming out called Spatial Command and Control, and I heard you guys mention the app conversation earlier. With that comes a mobile command and control, which is an app base, and it's a new map viewer that provides such. It's kind of like our MapFlex that we have. If we have any Viper customers on this call, think of MapFlex on steroids. Really provides a lot more information, interacts a lot differently, also provides an app base with it too. So we try to take the technology of the automation, not just in the call piece, but also the dispatching piece as well. So, but all those are laid out in the presentation. Again, I'm sorry that my Wi-Fi is in and out today. But I'm happy to show that to you. But it's kind of an overview, very broad overview, quick overview. I know you guys have another call to get to. But I will stop there and take any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for him?
I'm looking forward to seeing the presentation by email.
Yeah, and in that presentation, it really gives you some better visuals. That's the thing I hated. You know, the words piece is it's hard to focus on just words on a page, but the visuals itself show how, it all works together. So that's the part that will be the most beneficial.
So I guess
go ahead.
This is Matt. I guess I'm just a point of clarification. I know you said it several times, but I kind of want to put a pin in it. This level of GIS data service is not mentioned in our current EZNet tariff. And I just want to absolutely confirm that this isn't covered under our current tariff rates.
I will verify with CenturyLink. I am confident that the EGDMS, the portal piece is. Okay. That's what gets you to the I3. It's what the spatial interface that the CenturyLink EZNet uses. So I'm confident that piece is in there. As far as any services or products and whatnot, that might not be in there. I'll have to get with Wes and verify on that one.
That would be great.
But I will go back with him and verify it. I do know that all of our products and services are resellable through CenturyLink. I don't know how, and I do apologize off the top of my head. I'm not sure how the Colorado contract works.
Sure.
But I do know that the portal itself is built into the EZNet because without that, I3 call routing would not be possible. So,
right.
But I'll check on how the services and the other products work.
Okay.
So if I understand, we have this portal and we need that to get GIS data, but we can use Intrado for that data, or we could use a separate provider for the GIS data.
You can use a separate provider to you can use their portal and upload everything through there, and then they will do a couple different mechanisms they can do. They can either you can provide them login user status under your portal domain, which is all web-based, or we can provide them a MoveIt script, a box type service where they can upload it in there, and then it will auto upload into your spatial interface or your portal piece.
But we can buy their data services without having to buy their portal. We can use your portal.
You have to use.
Yes, and I guess I'm gonna beat this point home. And again, nothing against any other competitor. You can purchase any other portal you want to out there, but at the end of the day, you're still going to use ours.
Okay. Darrell, it seems to me that if we can get the presentation with the visuals for the GIS committee, this might be helpful.
Sure. Yep.
Yep. I'll forward it out to everybody as soon as I get it, and including the GIS committee.
But I mean, if the presenter could also be available for the GIS meeting, that would be helpful.
Well, yeah, and I would like to hear his responses on some of the stuff to see what's available to us in our current setup, because I think that's going to be really helpful information for the GIS subcommittee.
Yep, I'll be happy to attend the meeting, and I'll make sure I'll get with Wes, and we'll provide you all those answers as well as the presentation itself. But and if you guys ever want a demo of how it works, I'm happy to set that up and walk through it as well.
Terrific.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, thank you.
You can do that virtual. We don't have to be in the same room.
Yes, sir, we can.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing your presentation and getting some answers.
Nope, happy to help, and I'll get everything out to you, and you guys just let me know when the meeting is, and I'll make sure we have all the answers for you.
Terrific.
Thank you very much, Jason.
All right. Any last thoughts before we adjourn?
Vicki, are you president of the Resource Center Board meeting right now?
Yes.
I can't keep track of who's president. Are you
I
president?
can't either. Actually, I just looked it up to confirm, and I am. So.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she is.
You want to convene that meeting at 1 o'clock then?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
All right.
I will send the info out to the task force listserv in case anybody else wants to join us.
Okay. All right. So we will adjourn. I guess I need a motion to adjourn the task force meeting, though.
So moved.
Thanks, Jeff. Can I get a second?
So
I'll second Carl.
Thanks, Carl. Anyone opposed, please say nay. All right, thanks for everyone for your time. If you are interested in attending the 911 Resource Center, we will start up at 1 o'clock.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.